Support this podcast via our Patreon and get more writerly goodness. Visit patreon.com/nanocast to join up.
Welcome to NaNoWriMo Every Month. My name is J. Daniel Sawyer. I'm the author of some 20 books, 34 short stories, and numerous articles and other things, and I am your guide on this journey to use NaNoWriMo to level up to professional output levels. Welcome to The Questions, Episode 8. I've stopped calling these days because I might not be able to do this daily if the questions don't keep flowing, so I'm just calling them episodes now. This is Episode 8 of The Questions, and today's question is from Rob. Rob says, in an earlier episode or two, you mentioned the 5-act structure. Now, I've heard of the 3-act, which is used a lot in film, and I'm familiar with the Shakespearean 5-act play, but I don't think I've encountered it as a template for writing stories, especially not novels. Do you think you could talk a little more about how the 5-act structure compares with the 3-act structure and even the 7-point plot? Certainly, I can do that. It's pretty straightforward, actually. In the 5-act structure, you have Act 1 is introduction, Act 2 is complication, Act 3 is rising action, Act 4 is climax, and Act 5 is falling action, or denouement. So, in the introduction, you introduce your character, their situation, their problem, the side characters, everything you need to do to set a scene. The first act of The Lord of the Rings, for example, are the first couple of chapters in Hobbiton, dealing with Bilbo's birthday party and the 17 years in the Shire between then and when Gandalf comes back and tells Frodo that he's got to go take the ring. Act 2 in The Lord of the Rings would be the complications that arise from the fact that Gandalf has told Frodo what the ring is and where it comes from, more or less, and has him take off with his friends across the Shire and through Bombadil's land and to Bree and across the Midgewater marshes and to Weathertop and then all the way to Rivendell. The entire rest of the Fellowship of the Ring, frankly, could be seen as Act 2 of Lord of the Rings. Though, if you're talking about just the Fellowship of the Ring, because the Lord of the Rings is a nested plot structure, it's actually 3 major acts, each consisting of 5 acts in and of themselves. So, rising action would come from the journey down through Moria and the stay in Lothlorien, and then the climax would come when Boromir faces off with the Uruk-hai, allowing Merry and Pippin to be kidnapped and Frodo and Sam to escape. And then the falling action would be the decisions of everybody in the Fellowship to take their own different roads and shatter the Fellowship and continue on, in Frodo and Sam's case, with the quest, and with the case of the rest of them, to follow the orcs and rescue Merry and Pippin. And that's the 5-act structure that's nested in the first act of the 3-act structure of Lord of the Rings. It's a different way of thinking about plot. Most novels follow a 5-act structure, with the exception really of newer thrillers and fast-paced suspense books, and some romances which tend to follow a more cinematic 3-act structure. Now, the two aren't mutually exclusive, but a 3-act structure is essentially beginning, middle, and end. And the seams between them are fairly easy to see most of the time. There's often a change of location between the beginning, the middle, and the end. If not, there's a big change in the attitude or the stakes. With a 5-act structure, you get a bit of a slower play out, you get more opportunities to introduce rising stakes and whatnot, and it's actually the rhythm that most books have always followed. It's just, what developed naturally. The Shakespearean 5-act structure is very closely related to a novelistic 5-act structure, but it's not quite the same, because in a Shakespearean 5-act structure, you actually will have the climax in Act 5, which throws the whole rhythm off as being slightly different to what you find in a novel. Anyway, that ought to answer your question. If I didn't, feel free to write back with more specific questions. I'll do what I can. The 5-act structure is a great way to do things. I suppose it has the most in common with the 7-point plot outline. If you take the character and the situation with the problem, which are the first 3 points in the 7-point plot outline, you've basically got a 4-act structure wherein the rising action and the climax from a 5-act structure are squashed together into 1 point. And the validation in the 7-point plot outline maps to the denouement in the 5-act structure. Anyway, that's about how it works. It's not really a big deal. It's not something that you normally think about when you're writing unless you're trying to master a new structure on purpose, in which case it's totally worth reading up on because it is a really fun way to write. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Rob. I hope that answers your question, and I'll see you tomorrow. NaNoWriMo Every Month is written and presented by J. Daniel Sawyer and produced by Artistic Whispers Productions. Visit our website at NaNoWriMoEveryMonth.com and leave a tip in the tip jar to support this podcast. NaNoWriMo Every Month is copyright 2015 by J. Daniel Sawyer and Artistic Whispers Productions and released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license.